Okay, everyone. So probably the last of the video introductory talks. So this is going to be week 5 of the Resilient Runner, and technically it's the end of the series. Boo! Oh. However, I am going to add an additional 2 to take us through the following 2 weeks. So this week will be week 5. I'll do 2 more. And then I'm going to take a break and I'll see where we go from there. I might do some pop-up classes and things after that. So just a quick recap, always useful. So just a reminder to self, why am I running? And that's an ongoing question. And now that there's more opportunity for, if people choose to run in groups, in small groups, then your running aims may have changed and the support around what you're doing may have changed. And as I've said again before, there just seem to be more options around for people to have a bit of structure to their running through virtual run competitions that are going on, and even running races in an area that you would run them, but running them at your own time, i.e. the Whaley Walls. So there's lots of things that are going on to tempt runners back. So that's great in many respects, but I'm just going to go danger. We've had a pause for most of us, and that pause may have helped some people, not all, actually do a run that's more around what you actually need at the time, because you haven't got any other people or any other suggestions or focuses to pull you off what your body might need on that day. So that's the only danger I'm saying, is we get back to the old habits. And if some of those older habits were not conducive to supporting you when you're running, then it'd be really useful to just step back and reflect, how far forward am I going, and is this right for me? And we'll make mistakes on the way. So I had my first run out with a group of people on Friday. It was great. It was a long run. It was a testing run. I fell over. Marks. I fell over once. I saved myself from falling many more times. So it happens. So there's just those challenges that are good to have, but just being aware without being overly risk averse, that there's some awareness that you could add to just contemplate on what gains have you got and what would you really like to keep in terms of your running focus, or remembering why you run. Okay. And it continues on from that, to what was getting in the way, the injuries, or some sort of negative self-talk. It might be something in the mind, it might be something in the body, it might be a bit of both. So just working out what was going on there and what support you've got and what other additional support could you put in place. So we're going through all that from the earlier weeks of the class, just kind of highlighting the importance of that. And then more recently, I've been sort of saying about, what cues do you use to support your running form? Are they consistent? Do you actually know they help? Yeah, so you can have a cue that works for a while, and then it becomes just something to say to self, but actually not really embodied. You kind of it's not really making a difference anymore, or you didn't really pay quite as much attention as you thought you were, or whatever. So just being consider the cues that you've got. How useful are they? Are you actually keeping to them? How simple are they? And do you need to check any of them out? So there's lots of cues that actually you may have learned a long time ago that are actually not helping you, or are no longer any use to you. So you may actually be dropping things that were not supporting you, and that's more complicated to work out sometimes because we do what we do. But it's worth considering if there's actually things you think you're doing and it actually doesn't actually feel very good, but you think you've been told somewhere that will be good for you. If it doesn't work for you, it's probably not good for you. So just at the other side of the simple cues issues. I gave a little bit more of a talk on the breath last week, and the idea of using the nostril breath as a really supportive element to running aerobically, that 80% of your time where you're not pushing yourself, and how that can kind of bring everything a little bit more into balance, bring things a little bit more calm in terms of how you run. So there's loads of potential with the breath, but it's actually it's not something we learn. It's something that often only comes through breathwork classes, whether it be Pilates or yoga or whatever. Most of the time we don't get any indication of, unless we have a particular problem. And even then, often the advice isn't particularly necessarily that helpful of what you're going to do outside receiving treatment or whatever. So yeah, nostril breathing, and I can give you some more resources on that if people want that. Yeah, so this, just briefly, that was mainly a recap. We looked at alignment, and we looked at the cue of kind of a lengthening process through the spine and feeling tall, so the sense of crown of the head lift, connection with the sky as well as with the earth. So there's different ways of using these terms, and some won't have a good fit for you. So you find a fit with the words that make sense to you. And we looked at alignment last week, which is more like pelvis and rib cage and head relationship. And if one of those is out, the likelihood is everything else is affected. It will be affected. So if you come to account with your head, that's going to affect your ribs, it's going to affect your lower back and your pelvic position. If you thrust out with your pelvis, you probably thrust out with your chest possibly as well, and your head might go back. So you'll create quite a lot of problem in your lower back for most people. So there's lots of different ways of getting that a little bit out of kilter. So the importance of these three areas of support, and without thinking about having to stack them as such, but think about them floating above. So the idea of floating above gives a much more sense of lengthening, lightening, rather than, it can feel like stacking is heavily one pushing down almost on each of you, and actually you want the opposite. You want a lightness in the body. So this current week we're coming back to core work, which is just so kind of fed to us as the right thing to do, and it usually is. Almost always core work is kind of a sensible thing to be doing, some strength training, and most of us feel better for that. But if we're still not aligned correctly, if we're still collapsing, then that won't actually improve our running very much, and it won't improve generally our running with ease. So there are still dangers with thinking, I'm sorting all my core out, but actually either you're only looking at a very narrow understanding of core, or you're doing it with other bad habits around it, so the structure isn't really supporting the support of the core, if you like. So just having, bringing the belly in, which is just such a common cue, and one I use for simplicity. It's quite crude. It's a start. It reminds you about your centre. It reminds you about your sense of gravity. It reminds you about your belly. All that's really important, and from that might help you support your back, your lower back out, but it won't necessarily be enough. And there are different areas of the body that we need to be focused on when we think about the core, and a lot of it is the spine. That lengthening, that support for the spine is core. Is core, and we can, if we don't do that, if we neglect the spine, we're going to have a problem probably somewhere in the structure. The trunk. I just say that word twice because I like the word, in terms of like the strength aspect. So, the side muscles, muscles in the abdomen are really, really helpful and important. So we're going to do some work around side muscles, which again isn't unusual. Side plank and things like that are often used as a way of getting that more greater core support. So that's going to be another key area. Just I'm saying this casually at the end, but it's kind of almost the most important thing, is how we move, this kind of ability to move with ease. And it doesn't need to be necessarily started with running. It can be started with just what the kind of way you move when it's slower and easier, kind of this ability to move with ease, not easy, but move with ease, which means the right degree of support and the right amount of kind of fluidity. So when we get into these ideas of flow, then we're trying to balance out sufficient support and strength with sufficient fluidity and flexibility. I know I'm pretty rigid in terms of the shoulders, so I'm trying to get a little bit more small rotation in my spine, and I know I tend to sit back slightly too far and not using gravity as an easy force to kind of lean it. I don't want to use lean into, but a greater sense of ability to move with ease. As long as I don't fall over again, then that there is a different positioning for the body that will give that sense of lift from the chest as well as a lift from the crown of the head. So it's that ability to find a lightness and also to find the right amount of support. They're both equally important, and often we get stuck with the core, with the ground, support of the ground only, and not enough of the lightness, the poise, the subtle movements of the body that are required to prevent injury and just give that greater fluidity as I kind of wobble from side to side, get the idea. Okay, so I think I've probably said enough without hopefully giving you confusing messages here. So a lot of this has been rebuilt for me around the work I'm currently doing as a chi running coach, which has been quite exciting and quite interesting. But I am a person that hasn't had a lot. I'm not a personal trainer, and I haven't had a lot of external training support. I use Bramwell runners, which have been actually great. Prior to lockdown, kind of a weekly interval, etc. session in hills and stuff. So I have learned a lot with that. Brilliant. But I've also learned sort of new ways through the chi running, where I think I had got a little bit of things not particularly necessarily helpful for me. So I'm kind of having to debunk a few things. So thank you for listening. If you want to know more about chi running at some point, then please get in touch. I'm going to go through a process of finishing off the qualification. I've got to do some case studies and video analysis and things like that to kind of make sure I'm good enough to be allowed out on real people. But I will be bringing all this. I can't not bring it into the Yoga for Runners in the future anyway, so you'll be getting it directly or indirectly. So thank you for coming to the 5 weeks. Hopefully you'll be able to make it to the final 2 kind of structured sessions before I take a break and pop up occasionally, maybe in the summer, before we start again, maybe face-to-face, perhaps, in the late summer. Thank you very much, and any questions, do let me know, and I'll try and answer them or give you some direction of where someone could answer it. Thanks again.